Alright people, how we doing, man? I'm doing alright. Put my tree up yesterday, man. There was no really any great effort involved. It's a fibre optic number. Not I mean I couldn't I couldn't decorate a tree, man. I'd end up wrecking the gaff. Know what I mean? Um, Before I start, I wanted to give a shout out to the people that are engaging, subscribing, leaving positive comments and messages and all that kind of stuff. Didn't really think the channel was going to be as well received as it is. So thanks a lot and cheers for all the positivity. Keep it doing with merit, do you know what I mean? As I say, there's too much negative shit in the world. So I just thought I'd come on before my son gets back for his grandpa's. Yeah, shout out to Big Caesar, my big pal I'm going to meet today. It's my girlfriend's babysitting her pal's dog. Can't remember what kind of dog it is, but he looks like a horse. He's massive. Maybe look quite intimidating to some people, but he's got a dead sad face. I call him Big Sad Sack. But he just looks like a hoot. He's funny, man. Human videos and all that shit. So shout out my big pal. I'll see you after. So this video I want to get into is about. So somebody was commenting about how do you know do a video about rehabilitation in Scotland or whatever, right? But I think I'd already done one, but obviously I want to do another one, right? And obviously, because I don't want this channel to be just about guys I know for jail or something that happened in jail. I want it to be about that as well as eventually obviously interviewing people on here who work in prisons, who work in the criminal justice system, probation, whatever, courts. Want to interview like the young teams and all that and all, because obviously it's shit I was involved in myself, do you know what I mean? That lifestyle when I was growing up. So it's got to be about all different stuff. It's just not got to be about me talking shit about who I knew or what happened. Obviously it's early days, but do you know what I mean? I've not been doing this long. I've only been doing it for about 6 weeks or something. So it's not just got to be about that. So anyway, so where do I start? So rehabilitation in Scotland, bit of a kind of controversial subject, because if you want to look at if reoffending's anything to go by, right, prison's no working, rehabilitation's no working, right? And you could maybe say that's because there's a disconnect or there's something going wrong with the re-entry process. Now the re-entry process is all the stuff associated with ex-offenders leaving custody, right? So I want to read a document that I found, right? It's for 2005, but right, and it's out in Norway, right? The Norwegian Ministry of Justice or whatever refers to the Norwegian Reintegration Guarantee. Easy for me to say, right? So the Norwegian Reintegration Guarantee aims to provide ex-prisoners the right tools for re-socialisation when they leave prison, right? Because obviously, see, prison's a world within a world, right? And in there's parallel worlds in there. You've got the prison staff, their rules, and then there's the inmates, right? So do you know what I mean? That's not all going well for trying to re-socialise yourself or coming back out, especially when there's nothing there for you to come back out to, do you know what I mean? So Norwegian Reintegration Guarantee aims to provide ex-prisoners the right tools for re-socialisation, right? In 2005, the Norwegian government introduced a unified policy towards released prisoners called the Reintegration Guarantee. Now that's the key word there. Unified policy. See, in our country, there's nothing's unified in regards to this kind of shit, and I'll get into that, right? Senior advisor Marie Friedhof of the Ministry of Justice explains, although it is not a right in the legal sense, the reintegration guarantee is a commitment of all involved ministries to provide ex-inmates the possibilities to be a responsible citizen. The new strategy was designed with two purposes in mind. First, to reduce recidivism, or reoffending if you've never heard of that word. And second, to create better conditions for the released person. So basically, if you want to go as far as saying this, this should be common sense, do you know what I mean? Where when people are leaving prison, there has to be some sort of policy in force, right? And no wee piecemeal tokenism gestures like we're going to do away with the word inmate and call them service users. Like, you think that's going to impact somebody's pro-criminal mindset or stop them reoffending? Like, I'm not even going to get into it, man. It's just nonsense. Like, you got to wonder who's sitting thinking that shit up. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just, you're heading in the wrong direction, man. You need to be tackling real things, you know what I mean, rather than the vocabulary of, because obviously I've read in academic literature, so if we do away with these words, they'll stop seeing themselves that way. No, not a chance. I don't care what I still refer to myself as an ex-con, ex-offender, and it's like, some of them actually said to me, like, why do you call yourself that? And I'm like, is what it is. That's why. Do you know what I mean? So, get back to this, right? In practice, the reintegration guarantee entails that anyone who leaves prison or probation should be able to stand on their own and helped to obtain housing, work, school, healthcare, and things such as debt counselling. Pretty good if you ask me, because obviously these are all things like, so like in the UK, I know in America, like if you're a convicted felon, you can't vote, you can't go, they call it welfare, we call it the benefit system, so like you can't claim benefits, nothing, man. Do you know what I mean? Every door's closed. Almost every door. Obviously in America they have to pay for healthcare. Out here we don't. We have the NHS, right? You can get private healthcare, but bams like me don't pay for it. You know what I mean? So these are all. I don't want to call them human rights, but everybody needs healthcare, work, housing. You need a roof over your head. You know what I mean? And Michael Gove said this when he was the Justice Minister down south. He said people leaving prison need there's three things they need: housing, employment, and strong family ties, right? And if you're coming out of jail without that, then it's not gonna look good for you trying to stay away from old haunts, old habits, all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So Marie Freetov, right, this is what she's saying. The effort requires a new mindset from the government, and I would say that our government needs a new mindset as well in regards to rehabilitation, which I'll get into when I go into the SPS documentation, Scottish Prison Service. It takes close cooperation to reach all released persons. Plus, it was always assumed that the correctional services own the prisoner. This is the way the correctional services thought, and this is also how other authorities have thought. The guarantee makes this way of thinking impossible. Now all levels of government, and in fact the whole society, has to take responsibility for reintegration. This is a big and important step towards a situation where inmates, equally with other citizens, get what they have a right to concerning social benefits, school, housing, etc. Now I want to go back to a couple of things that she mentioned, right? Obviously cooperation, there has to be cooperation between all these, like the criminal justice system in terms of like social work, probation, penal system, counselling services, all this kind of stuff has to be coordinated. Do you know what I mean? And it has to be put in place. Do you know what I mean? Because, and I'm not talking about a license, I'm talking about for change. Do you know what I mean? For change to be enabled. And she mentioned something there. The whole society has to take responsibility for reintegration. Now, if you want to, if you want to look at it like this, right? In my experience, when ex-offenders come out of prison, right, especially guys like myself, with kind of a lot of time serious charges, all that stuff, nobody wants to know you in pro-social circles almost. But my life's an open book. Like I don't hide the fact where I've been, what I've done. Like it's not the first thing I would hit out with in a conversation, but do you know what I mean? I like to let people get to know me first and then tell them shit and all that, and then they can make their own minds up about it. But what about people who are just like, I like maybe it could be people that's been affected by crime. It's like give them all bread and water and lock them up and throw away the key. Well, some crimes, I'm just my personal. That's just my personal opinion. There's some things that just can never be forgotten or forgiven. Do you know what I mean? Like the worst, the worst. Well, there's no rehabilitation for that. Do you know what I mean? That's just no well. But for people like myself coming out that are demonstrating change and evidencing change, and I'm talking about other people I know, like spoke to a guy yesterday who I was in prison with. I'm not going to say his name obviously, but he's his own licence and see the amount, like he's doing well. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and I feel like this as well. It's almost like you still feel like they own you. Like I still feel like if like any time I see a cop car driving in my street, I think it's for me, and I've not even done anything. I just think shit, here they come. I feel like I'm living on no borrowed time, but like they've still got a grip of me, and it's because of my past, that it never goes away, right? And at the end of the day, like it shouldn't be forgotten. But see if people are evidencing change, sustaining change, transformation, and can show that, then there has to be an angle or an outlet for that to be acknowledged. You know what I mean? And that links into what academics have called tertiary desistance. So if you think of desistance as a process, right, or a journey, there's three stages to it. The first one is a change in your criminal behaviour. So you stop committing crimes, right? You stop offending. And if you do that for long enough, the second stage is basically a change in your mentality. You stop seeing yourself as an offender, a bank robber, a gangster, a drug, whatever it was you're doing, right? And the third stage, but is kinda, to me, it's kinda a different one because it basically describes how society has to acknowledge that and welcome the inmate back into the society through like pro-social activities like work or this stuff they're talking about. Do you know what I mean? And I know of cases in France, Spain, Holland, a couple of European countries, right, where if you can demonstrate to a court, a law, that you've turned your life around, then they acknowledge that legally. It's called judicial rehabilitation, right? And there's in some of these countries as well, you can get like called a conduct certificate. I think it's Holland, right? A conduct certificate it's called, where basically it's like getting a certificate saying he's done time but he's alright now. Sort of. I don't want to like go into the fucking legalese it, do you know what I mean? But aye, so we have nothing like that here, absolutely nothing. And the way of tackling reoffending in this country is basically we're calling them service users now. They're not inmates, they're not prisoners, they're service users. I'm just like, I can't even be bothered debating with anybody that's in that mindset, man. I'm just like, So maybe it's got to be things like this that might start the ball. I don't know, right? It's a bit lofty thinking that way, but you never know, stranger things have happened, you know what I mean? So back to this, right? The guidance of the prisoners starts before their release. One of the guiding principles of the guarantee, explains Marie Friedhof, is that the release becomes predictable. The inmate knows the date and time of the release, but also what is waiting for the inmate with regard to housing, work, finances, education, and health. Right? 25 specially educated release coordinators are working in the prisons to help the guards and others involved in the release process. They work to establish all necessary contacts with the local authorities who are and will be responsible for the ex-inmate from the first day after release. Now, what I've just said to you, one thing I want to say is, like, the inmate knows the date and time of release, blah blah blah, right? I've seen this a lot, right, and myself included, see a lot of guys doing that long, right, and even guys doing shorter sentences, see when they're coming out, see if they're having to go homeless or they've no money, they don't know how they're going to support their kids, their whatever, right? It's just an anxiety-ridden time, and I can't stress that enough, do you know what I mean? And especially when they're coming out to as a social worker who's just there to make sure, like, looking at them through the risk lens, no through how do I help you stay out of jail. They're looking at it as, first thing you do wrong, I'm reporting you to the pro board or whoever, and you're going back to the jail, right? And you'll get social workers that are no like that, right? But in my experience, and a lot of people that I've served time with, that's the model, the risk paradigm. Do you know what I mean? Just risk, 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 risk. So it's not really helping anybody stay out. Do you know what I mean? If you want to say it's probably pushing them towards offending, if you ask me. Do you know what I mean? It's just, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want change? How bad do you want to stay out? Do you know what I mean? And another interesting thing was this release coordinators who are specially educated. I'm sure in Norway you have to actually go to university and get a degree to become a prison officer. It's an actual degree in becoming a screw, right? And in our country, so a degree takes you, 4 years at least, right? At least 4 years to get a bachelor's degree. Mine's took me longer because I was doing it part-time and I was doing it in prison, right? And I took like 3 years off as well. So in Scotland, you go to see, to become a prison officer in Scotland, right? They go to a training camp for like fucking 6 months or something. If that, I don't know how long it is, but it's nowhere near 4 years, and it's no, you've not got a degree in being a screw. Do you know what I mean? Anybody could go and do it, and I'm not knocking any of them. Do you know what I mean? For the job that they've got, but this is an industry to me, man. It's like reoffending is the profit that's keeping prisons alive, because without reoffending there is no prisons, because I guarantee you, if you go to any prison in Scotland and count all the inmates and ask who's all reoffenders, you're probably going to get a mind-blowing amount. It's not going to be, it's got to be like 90% or more, do you know what I mean? So speaks for itself if you ask me. It has become clear that the execution of the guarantee is not easy. What is easy, do you know what I mean? Marie Friedhof refers to a recent study of the Norwegian Institute for Urban and Regional Research. Not unexpectedly, they found that potential obstacles to full implementation of the guarantee are located at the legal level, the structural and organisational level, the financial level, and at the human level. The attitudes towards convicts are not always favourable either. I believe, however, that the approach of the reintegration guarantee is fundamentally a good one. Aye, well, it sounds that way, do you know what I mean? We share and transfer the responsibility to them who really are responsible to solve the problems. And lastly, but not unimportantly, we activate and help the prisoners to be the main actor in their own release. Do you know what I mean? So, to me, that sounds pretty. I don't know. Right, it sounds obviously workable. It sounds like a vision, a plan. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, I don't have contacts in Norway, so I can't go and check it out, see how it went. Because 2005, we're talking about 17, 18 years ago. So I don't know, and I'm sure Norway have had a reoffending rate of 20%. It's probably went up or down, or it's the same just now. But they've always kind of fared well. They're referenced as penal exceptionalism, like their penal system is exceptional because it's kind of humane and therapeutic and all that kind of stuff. There's a Netflix thing, right? Don't know if it's still on Netflix. It's like the world's toughest prisons, and there's one on it about Norway, and you wait to see their jails, man. You're like, what, man? It looks like the Holiday Inn. But as I've said before, the way a prison looks on the outside is no indication of the way it is on the inside, because I've been in jails that look like fucking campuses and they're crazy, man. It's, as I say, it's the same nut jobs inside it. Do you know what I mean? And so I want to go into the Scottish Prison Service literature, right, about they call it the corporate plan, what they're going to do for the next 4 years, what we're going to implement, all this stuff, right? And then the 2014 one, they said we will embed desistance at the heart of purposeful activity, right? So purposeful activity being education, work, and all that stuff, right? Now this was from 2014 to 2017. I was in prison all the years. Desistance was not, and I tell you right now, this was not at the heart of purposeful activity, and I actually referenced that in my thesis for the end of my degree, right? That document. I was asking guys, have you heard of desistance? I hadn't heard it until I started doing my degree at the end, right? None of them had heard it, do you know what I mean? So, well, how was it not being implemented? Do you know what I mean? And do you know what? See, the funny thing is, wait till I read this to you, right? It's a copy of my end of course. The end of my degree, it's like I had to write a 10,000 word essay or a 20,000 word essay, whatever the hell it was, right? And I wrote I quoted the Scottish Prison Service rules in it, right? Listen to one of these rules, right? So I'm gonna read a paragraph, right, out of my degree thesis, right? Perhaps the entire UK prison system should focus on directing offenders into employment rather than onto the prison to welfare conveyor belt that exacerbates their own situation and provides the ingredients for reoffending. This gap in the market must be bridged so that offenders' chances of reoffending are decreased. If they are released without intervention, the chances of recidivism are high. This could be tackled at the root, i.e. in prison, where the prisoner could learn skills that will lead to stable employment in the community. Instead, the so-called purposeful activity within Scottish prisons revolves around mandatory work sheds, the gym, which is optional, and very basic levels of education, which is also optional. Rule 81, paragraph 2 of the Prison Rulebook in Scotland explains, this is a direct quote, right? The governor must determine a programme of work, educational activities and counselling for the prisoner with the objectives of improving A. the prospects for the successful resettlement in the community, and B. the prisoner's morale, attitude and self-respect. So that's Prison Rules Scotland 2011 page 44, right? So Rule 81 paragraph 2 and that is not happening. And obviously with the amount of numbers in jail, like, how are they going to implement that? There's like 2 screws in a wing of 100 people. It's all about warehousing and getting them fed, getting them to work. Like, Rehabilitation Scotland doesn't exist in our system, man. Anybody that says it does, I'd like to speak to you, because I want to know what jail you were in. Do you know what I mean? Absolute madness. And they were saying about how in the SPS corporate plan they're going to limit the use of remand prisoners now. Remand's the highest it's ever been in Scotland now. What is going on? What is going on? Do you know what I mean? Deaths of spite, and I put that down to the fact that the spice and the tizalam, as it's called, right? And just guys just hammering whatever, they're just taking a cocktail of drugs. Like, drug use doesn't stop when people go into prison if they've got addiction. It keeps going. They just take different stuff. I've seen it. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't stop. Like, there's no such thing as rehabilitation in our country. Rehabilitation comes from in here, right? And I get that some people might be sceptical and all that stuff. I would be sceptical. See, if I read about me own paper, I wouldn't give me a job. I wouldn't want to speak to me. Do you know what I mean? And that's just, to me, that's just the way it is, because obviously I've got a serious history. Do you know what I mean? It's not got to sit and beat about the bush. Do you know what I mean? There was another thing as well, right? So there was where was it? There's all these kind of wee third sector organisations coming out with, we're going to employ cons, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, right? And I don't really kind of, as I've said, that my own personal experience of that was, there was a third sector organisation that was published in a national newspaper before I got out, right? It was called Release Scotland. Release Scotland is now going to employ, so basically it's this agency, right? And all these employers have signed up to it. So Greggs, Timpson's, Reed Global, Virgin, Richard Branson's Virgin, all these different companies, basically saying, if offenders want to work, we'll give them jobs, we'll train them and give them jobs and benefits, employment benefits, all this shit, right? So, and they had a couple of people who they were like showing you success stories. This guy's changed his life. He done 18 months. He battered somebody after a pub fight and that, and blah blah blah. Right. So there was no contact address on this. All I could get was an email address, and I emailed them when I got out. I still have this email, right? And took them 10 months to get back to me. No, I was contacting them as soon as I got out. They referred me to the job centre. Somebody in the job centre who was telling me how to write a CV. A CV, mate. I've been in jail all my life, grown up in jail. What am I going to put in a CV? I done a degree in prison, but I'm out now and I'm reformed. Don't think so, mate. No employer's going to touch me with that shit, man. Come on. There's just, people need to be real about this, do you know what I mean? If you really want people to stay out, you have to get all this kind of lock them up, throw away the key crap, do you know what I mean? And obviously there is people we need to lock up and throw away the key, right? Your Tobins, your Sutcliffes, all that kind of shit, right? But if people who've lived the way I have, or like say somebody else who's like going out at the weekend, getting mad with it and getting into boxes, gang fighting, all that shit, right? If they've truly turned their life around, to me that's the success story. Somebody who's engaging in a pattern of offending almost half their life, the whole life, whatever, and truly changes their attitude, their viewpoint, perspective, their life, everything. That's a success story to me. And I'm not knocking the wee guy that done the 18 months and never looked back, because you still didn't go back to that, but it wasn't a pattern of offending for you. it was a one-off. To me, the guy who, or the woman who was just at rock bottom, turned it round, just was in and out your whole life, aye, that, to me, that's a success story, do you know what I mean? And I'm no referencing myself, because I don't think I should get a pat in the back for doing something that I should have been doing all along, you know. But as I've said, I don't want to kind of go into all the boring details of fucking rehabilitation and blah blah blah, because I realise that a lot of people are into the academic side of it, and I realise that, because obviously it's one of the reasons I done this channel, because obviously I was into my writing, academic writing for unis and all that, right? And I realised, who's going to read that in the scheme? Who's going to? Nobody. Like, maybe one person, if that, like my own family. Nobody's got to read this stuff. It's written in a style that would just give you a headache, man. It would give your ass get a headache. Do you know what I mean? I get a headache reading it, rereading it, because sometimes I try and reread it to refresh my memory, and I'm like, I can't even be bothered with that shit anymore, man. Can't be arsed with it. We need to tackle this. If anybody's trying, really trying, like, if you really want to, you have to do it on the ground, is like what we're doing now. Talking about it, bringing awareness to it, and all that kind of stuff. No just sitting, writing about, writing about it for University of whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's just, that's how it's got, and it's people with lived experience like myself. Do you know what I mean? And there was something that it was in. So the SPS corporate plan, right? The one that I referenced in my thesis was going about desistance at the heart of purposeful activity, but then 2017 they've brought out the next one. There was no mention of desistance. It's, we're going to target serious and organised crime groups in prison, because obviously there was a lot of guys in obviously Glasgow and Edinburgh linked to serious organised crime groups who were all getting sentences. So that was the paradigm then. Target all these guys, intelligence bonanza, all this shit, right? And now they've brought the latest one out. So what's the latest paradigm? Trauma informed. So now we're going to come at this from a trauma informed perspective. Trauma informed, this is all you're hearing, soundbite crap, man. You try to tell me you're going to go in and talk to a guy about his trauma. He's a kid and he's a grown man now. He's already that ship has sailed, man. You should have had your chance to do that. Nobody in prison wants to talk about their trauma. I would say you're just got to be patronising at that point, because it's like too little, too late. Do you know what I mean? The trauma informed practices, in my view, should be aimed at young offenders and possibly women offenders, right? But see, like people like myself, you need to use desistance practices, right? Because I dare say you're not going to, you'll be lucky to find any guys want to talk about the shit happened to them growing up. Obviously my life's all in book, I talk about it, and obviously I've made my peace with all that shit, do you know what I mean? I'm no I'm not really living it, and sometimes if I talk about it I get pure mental dreams, right? But I'm no like sitting dwelling on it and nursing hatred. I'm past it, man. Like, I've got a kid now, do you know what I mean? So and I guarantee you, man, see the next SPS corporate plan that they publish, guarantee you it'll be something else. It'll not be trauma informed, it'll be some other slogan. Know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It's just, what a crap, man. It's no changing MD. Know what I mean? They're building jails bigger than they ever have. They're packing them. They're flooding the jails with more people after saying they were going to cut the use of remands. Now remands are like skyrocketed. Deaths have spiked. Drugs are getting worse. Everything's just mental. It's chaos. He's only making a dent. Sad, man. It's just fucked up. Know what I mean? And if any's want to read any of the documents, you can find it online if you ever want. I doubt any's would want to read it because it's, it's just a lot of reading, it's a lot to take in. But just need to keep on keeping on. See if you want change, something's good got to come at. Do you know what I mean? There's got just find what you're good at. Called a hook for change. Something you can grab onto that's going to catalyse change, right? And then just take it for there, man. See if you desist long enough, good things will start happening. Like I've been at 4 years now, just over 4 years, and I feel like obviously if I've started doing this podcast, like things have really started happening. The amount of positive messages I've been receiving is quite encouraging and positive. So that's a reason to indicate that I'm doing the right thing, and I'm getting like some people are identifying with what I'm saying and all this kind of stuff. So good. And eventually, I don't know if I said before, but I'll just reiterate that obviously I don't want this channel to just be about talking about, oh, I was in my Joe blogs and he battered fucking Mr. X, see all that shit, man. I want to be, eventually I want to be, once I figure out what I'm doing, because I don't really know what I'm doing yet, you know what I mean? I just decided to do this on a lark and it's taken off. I want to be interviewing people who work in the criminal justice system, the penal system, like governors, prison officers, whoever, social workers, psychologists, ex-police, serving police, young teams, everything, man, because we're all involved in this, you know, um, or we have been. So that's the only reason we've got to bring awareness to this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And hopefully it'll help somebody. Do you know what I mean? That's what somebody said to me. Um, if you save one person, then it was worth it. Do you know what I mean? So I just thought I'd put that out there so that like nobody thinks it's just got to be sitting talking about who I knew and what I done, and I want to also be talking about like some of my own experiences as a kid, like with kind of the gang fighting and all that. Because trust me, it's no glamorous, man. You just think that because you're a kid and you're impressionable. Trust me. See when you're lying in the hospital with a blade sticking at you, you'll not be laughing then. Do you know what I mean? And as I've told you before, I've been there more than once. Do you know what I mean? And I'm lucky to be here talking about it. So I hope that was informative, and I'm going to go make some meat. Then I'm away to see Big Caesar, Big Caesar, my big pal. I love animals, as you can tell. Know what I mean? So all yours take care and have a good weekend. I'll speak to you next time I'm on.